Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. A couple of days ago, Larian Studios released an infographic that revealed a ton of information about the players who have been enjoying Baldur's Gate 3. They've done this a couple of times before, but obviously it's never tallied a year's worth of information, so this one is a lot more interesting, and I thought many of you would enjoy a video. Keep in mind, this video will be spoiler heavy because it goes into a lot of the secret decisions that you're able to make throughout the game. So if you haven't played through Baldur's Gate 3, you might want to go ahead and skip it. But I assume the vast majority you probably have. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So this infographic was released on Larian's Twitter page, and it's already got over 2 million views. A bunch of you have apparently been enjoying the information. Now it kicks right off with some spoiler information. 1.9 million players have been turned into a cheese wheel. This is actually something I've never experienced. I was able to avoid pissing off the Jin. I just let his little comments go, but apparently some of you decided to pick a fight with him, or rather many of you did, and consequently you had this happen to you. However, I most certainly have experience with 3.5 million players have paying a friendly visit to some dinosaurs. So if you steal an item, I forgot what the item was, but if you steal an item from him, then he'll basically transport you to this realm where you end up facing dinosaurs. It's actually really cool, really unexpected. And so it's nice that a large portion of the players who went through Baldur's Gate 3 actually got to experience this. 2 million players freed us from the colony. Us was creepy to me throughout my entire playthrough. The way it talks, the way it moves, the way it looks, everything about it was super, super creepy. But I did still really enjoy the process of being able to make it a permanent companion, or at least someone that you can call out during combat and during your adventures. And I think Larian Studios did a great job. Even this picture of us is super creepy. Just oof. All right, and then finally on this first page, 377,000 players who went through the Dark Urge storyline were able to figure out a way to spare Alfira, which is who is a bard that you can meet in Act 1. Usually the Dark Urge would kill her during your playthrough in the middle of the night, so you don't get an option of directly deciding not to kill her. But apparently there was a way to get around this. I'm not clear on what it was. I didn't even know how Dark Urge really went when I started the playthrough. I somehow, even though I was making Baldur's Gate 3 content and I knew a little bit about Dark Urge, I avoided the vast majority of spoilers regarding the storyline. And in fact, I've still been able to avoid a lot of spoilers because I've only done Dark Urge as a character who was evil aligned. I've never done the good aligned version. And so my understanding is that's really supposed to be the best way to play Baldur's Gate 3. I can't wait to start our honor mode playthrough so I can see that for myself. So apparently there's still some things about that sequence that I know nothing about. And yeah, I didn't know that I would kill her or that there was a way to save her. So I'm definitely going to try to save her when I run Dark Urge back. Alfira was a character I really enjoyed. I thought she was really well done. And I gotta be honest with you, I was kind of hurt when it turned out my character ripped her apart. So kudos to the 377,000 people who were able to successfully save her. Speaking of honor mode, the next infographic is all about stats for the players who have braved that mode. So 141,000 players have actually successfully conquered honor mode, which, as you can probably tell, isn't very many. So I'm actually surprised it's that few. I definitely plan to count myself among their number before the year is out. So looking forward to seeing how difficult it actually is. Now, 1.2 million playthroughs actually ended in defeat. And so it seems like a lot of people tried honor mode, flamed out, and then probably didn't pick it back up. We'll see how hard it actually is. Well, you know what? Even when I do honor mode, I'm not going to do regular honor mode. I'm going to be basically focusing on a bunch of the mods. So I'm probably going to have the mod that lets me use all companions, go through all romances. I'll be adding a bunch of new classes and races. So, I take that back. I'm not going to really go through straight honor mode the way most people did. So, but regardless, we'll have a good time. Now, 76% of the players who went through this mode and died did the honorable thing and just deleted their save game. But apparently 24% of them, because you do have the option to continue playing if you fail honor mode. You don't have to just quit your playthrough. It just won't count as the completion of an honor mode playthrough if you continue in that way. 24% of people chose to just go ahead and finish out their adventure. Honestly, I hate modes like this. Usually I don't like Last as Lanty in Pathfinder. I never did that mode. It does not appeal to me at all. The only reason honor mode appeals to me is because it actually changes things about the game. It makes the enemies actually more difficult. I like the fact that not only do you get the achievement, but you get the dice skin that you can use in additional playthroughs, right? So there's enough additional things happening here that I'm like, okay, this is worth my time. But usually, you all know, I'm all about story and dialogue. I'm not really about challenge. So I'm not interested in playing something on the hardest difficulty. It's not what motivates me. But honor mode seems very interesting. All right, now the next infographic is where things get really interesting. I'm fascinated by this statistic. So the top 3 origin characters were that players actually used and did a playthrough with were Astarion, Gale, and Shadowheart, which is probably, for me personally, might be top 3 that I would be least interested in as far as a playthrough. Now, actually, I was really interested in Astarion because I was hoping that Baldur's Gate 3 would give me like that vampire playthrough that I haven't had. We haven't had very many good vampire role-playing games. We'll see how Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 works out. But I was hoping for that. But otherwise, now that I know the game doesn't really work like that, there's not a whole lot of reactivity to you being a vampire. Makes me a lot less excited to play as him. And Gale and Shadowheart, I like them as party members, but I never wanted to actually play as those characters. So to see them be a top 3 is very, very interesting. Apparently a whole lot of you are missing out on how amazing Will actually is, but that's a story for another day. What I really, really find interesting about this slide is that 93% of players chose to play as a custom avatar. So it seems like a ton of you just prefer a completely blank slate, which I find fascinating because you all know I love role-playing games. I like playing as a blank slate. That's cool, but to be honest with you, I would never choose blank slate in Baldur's Gate 3. If I was going to play if I wanted to be a blank slate, I would basically choose Dark Urge. Like, to me, that is the de facto blank slate character. And so to see that so many players have decided, no, I don't like any of this. I would rather just be completely my own person. Very, very interesting, very unexpected for me. Now, they also provided the top class and race picks in Baldur's Gate 3. When it comes to class, I'm honestly not that surprised by the list. The top 3 is very similar to my top 3. I'm definitely Paladin's top. Sorcerer is very, very close. I'd probably Sorcerer would probably be 3 for me, and then Warlock would be number 2. I really, really like the way Larian Studios interpreted Warlock for this game. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And then I do really like Fighter and Barbarian. I think there's a ton of people who apparently don't realize how incredible Ranger can be, especially if you get that Gloomstalker subclass. So I'm a little bit surprised to see how low it is, but I'm not at all surprised to see Cleric and Druid ranking very low. And Monk, it isn't that low. I haven't actually used Monk, and from what I've heard, it's a very, very good class. I think it's more so a situation where, in comparison to the other amazing options, Monk isn't getting as much play. But yeah, this looks pretty consistent with what I would have expected. I'm really happy to see a little bit more differentiation in the race picks. that people are using now. When the game first launched, Dragonborn and Gift Yankee were way at the bottom, and I was like, come on, y'all. I was terrified that Larian look at that and be like, oh, I guess we shouldn't have taken all that time to implement Gift Yankee and Dragonborn as race options in the game. And I would hate for them to walk away with that message. I'm so happy that they went the extra step to add some options that are outside of the usual human, elf, and dwarf options we always get in these D&D type games. And so it's really nice to see that quite a few people are playing Dragonborn. Not as many playing Gift Yankee. I would definitely like to see it higher up in the list, but I know that most people, again, they're used to playing humans or elves. It's also really nice to see Drow here. Like, I haven't done a full playthrough as Drow yet, but I did do the first few hours of Act 1, and already the reactivity was fantastic. And from what I've heard, that fantastic reactivity pretty much continues throughout the game. So I'm really interested in doing an evil playthrough as a Drow, romancing Minthara. I think that's going to be a great time. And yeah, it's cool to see that so many people are trying out some options that are outside of the usual standard. Then on the next slide, Larian lets us all know about the romances people have been choosing. And I gotta admit, they exposed that there's some sickos amongst us. Let's talk about it. Over 75 million companion kisses, and the top leader in the list as far as characters that the players enjoy romancing is Shadowheart. Gotta admit, that kind of surprises me. I don't get all the Shadowheart hype, but it appears that all those people who enjoyed her before the game came out, it continued right on into launch. So kudos to you all. And then Astarion is number 2. Me personally, I like Karlach the most. I think she has the best lines. She is a ton of fun to romance. Her personality is so awesome. I don't like her character arc. I feel like Larian kind of did her bogus, as she should have had more content, especially in Act 3. But from a strictly romance standpoint, I think she's the best option out of all of them. Astarion is number 2 with 15 million kisses. We all know Astarion has a very large fan base. And unfortunately, Minthara comes in last. I say it's unfortunate because Minthara is actually a great character with a great romance, but I think, once again, I think Larian kind of did her bogus because for so long, she was heavily bugged and was missing a ton of content. And I'm sure that put some players off of romancing her, not to mention the fact that for a long time, if you did a good aligned playthrough, you flat out couldn't recruit her. So I'm sure that also damaged a lot of people's interest in her. But for those who don't already know, Minthara's a great time. Great time. Now, they also talked about the Acts 1 celebration that you have to end that particular act. And 32% of people spent the night with Shadowheart. 13% got hot with Karlach. And then 15% of players slept alone. What? That's interesting. Why play Baldur's Gate 3 and not romance anybody? You people are like, I don't like romances in games. Romance doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. I don't get it. I don't understand the appeal. I'm just saying no to everybody when they're available. But hey, do you, whatever works for you. And then for Act 3, 48% of players experienced Shadowheart's final romance scene. That's crazy to me, to be honest with you. 48% of players got Shadowheart's final romance scene. So she's like far and away the most romanced character. Insane. While 17% of them had a romantic dinner with Karlach, that was definitely me. It was absolutely a fantastic scene. If you haven't had it already, I highly recommend you do a playthrough with Karlach. And then 12% of players held hands with Lizelle. I haven't done a romance yet with Lizelle, but I've heard great things about it, and it's definitely one of the things that I want to do. Now, let's get to this bottom portion of the infographic, because some of you should clearly be ashamed of yourselves. So 658,000 players had sex with Halsin. No problem there. We all have our preference. 70% got down and dirty with his human form. Again, do your thing, no problem. 30% chose the bear. 200,000 people. I want names. I want names. Who are you people? Who are you people? Like, yes, finally, Larian has given me what I always wanted, the opportunity to be ravaged by a bear. Like, come on. Come on. To be honest with you, I understand this other part of the infographic. 1.1 players got down with the Emperor, right? 63% of players chose Dream Guardian form. That I get it. I get it, all right? Because you're able to choose exactly the way the Guardian looks at the beginning of the game. So when this romance option comes up, you're like, hey, look, I know it's not how you really look, but go ahead. I put a lot of effort into make you look like Rihanna. So just go ahead and switch on back to that, and we can do whatever. 37% discover the sensual pleasures of mind flayer tentacles. What is wrong with you people? What is wrong with all of you? I don't get it. Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. But hey, it seems like a lot of people are enjoying the game. Do your thing. Do your thing. Moving right along, we have the pets. And apparently Scratch was petted over 120 million times, while the owlbear was petted over 41 million times. And 141,000 players attempted to pet His Majesty. Only 141,000? To me, it was natural when I had the opportunity. Like, yeah, of course, I'm going to try to pet His Majesty. I'm actually shocked that so few of you all attempted to do that. That scene is hilarious, by the way. But again, I think Larry did a fantastic job of implementing the pets. I'm one of those guys. I love running around with a dog, like in Dragon Age Origins in the live stream we just had. I installed the mod that let me keep the dog at all times, and it was absolutely fantastic. And Fallout, I love keeping the dog with me at all times. I don't know why. I don't have a dog in real life and never really even thought about him. But for some reason in games, it just always makes sense to me. Like, yeah, I should have a pet with me. In Pillars of Eternity, I love having the little pets that run around with you. I love in how the sequel, both you and Adair can have a pet. Even though they don't attack, they just give a small buff. It's just nice having little creatures running around with you. So this is really, really cool stuff. Glad Larian did it. The next slide is about the epilogues. Now, this part is really, really interesting to me because this content was added to the game after I pretty much stopped playing Baldur's Gate 3. So there's a lot here that I haven't experienced at all, and I can't wait to do so. I know they put in a lot of effort to expanding the endings that really felt very anticlimactic when the game first launched. The first one is 1,498 players hugged God Gale goodbye. And I assume this means you romanced Gale and then made him a godlike figure at the end, but you all do not stay in your romance. So it kind of makes sense that so few players would choose that option. Most likely you would only want to make Gale a god who would leave you if you were just friends with him and didn't really want to have him around anyway. I love the way he looks in this shot though. This really, really makes me want to do a playthrough as Gale and get this godlike epilogue because I'm curious if the game actually lets you walk around looking like this. And then 1.1 million players gave Halsin a hug. That makes sense. 2,100 God Gales chose to transform Terra into a hairless cat. That's interesting. Again, I have no idea what that means. I haven't went through those epilogues yet. And then finally, 54,000 players petted Tara. Dozens of pigeons watched on in horror. That makes me think of Shale. Hilarious. The next slide is also very interesting. It details the top classes used by every race. So, for example, it appears that most people who use Dwarf prefer to go with Paladin or Barbarian, with only a few delving into Fighter, which absolutely makes sense. The second one makes sense to me as well. Dragonborn, most of them are going into Sorcerer, and that's because Sorcerer intertwines with that race in a way where you get extra customization options for their scales because of your Sorcerer Draconic bloodline. Very, very cool stuff. A lot of amazing options for how you make your character look. So I completely understand why they would do that. Although just sticking with typical D&D, I always want my Dragonborn to be a paladin. So there's a bunch of other interesting combinations here. I don't quite get gnome with bard. Why there's so many people who love bard specifically for gnomes, but the rest of them absolutely make sense and are pretty much in line with what I would expect. And then the last slide, which is also very interesting, is about the endings. 1.8 million players decided to betray the Emperor, which to me, I know it sounds weird, but it kind of feels morally wrong to betray him. He's so, clearly honest for the most part and upfront about everything that's happening. I am probably going to do it in my next playthrough because I really, really want to see what it's like when you completely side with the gift. But I already know it's not going to feel good. Now, for those of you who did decide to betray him, 329,000 players convinced Orpheus to live as a mind flayer. I've never done this before. I've done 2 playthroughs of Baldur's Gate 3. First one, I just sided with the Emperor, and then the second one was Dark Urge. So I sided with the Emperor, but in the end, I ended up betraying everybody anyway. So this I've never experienced. Really looking forward to seeing that content at some point. And then 3.3 million players killed the Netherbrain. And of those players, 200,000 of them had Gale blow himself up to do it, which is interesting. To be honest with you, I would expect that number to be a little bit larger. When I saw that option, I was like, whoa. Oh, I wonder what this is like. And I just went on ahead and let him do it because I wanted to see how it would affect the ending and, what sort of different reactions I would get based on allowing him to make that decision. So to see that there were so many people who were like, what? Nah, we're not doing that. We're just going to go up and face this the regular old way. That's kind of interesting. But it is actually pretty cool to watch him go through that. And then finally, what might be the most surprising stat in the entire infographic, 34 players playing as Avatar Lae'zel chose to kill themselves at the end of the game after Vlaakith rejected their ascension. Who are you people? That's amazing. To me, I actually really like that because it's like, it's true to the role playing, right? I have this character, I'm role playing this character in this very specific way, and I'm going to take it all the freaking way, all the way up to the very, very end. I think that's actually kind of cool. Kudos to the 34 of you all. I hope whatever scene that plays or whatever reactivity you all got from doing that was worth it. That is the full list of information that Larian Studios provided. Again, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was interesting. I thought it revealed a lot about the community that's been playing this amazing, incredible game. I really like what they've been doing with the rollout regarding the anniversary. They started up that new YouTube channel that's supposed to be community based. Already looks like we're going to get some really interesting content coming out of there. They'll probably start talking about their next game sometime this next year. I can't wait to hear those discussions. Sometime in September, we'll be getting the mod support. It'll be fascinating to see what mods and options are available for Baldur's Gate 3. Again, once that happens, I definitely plan to do an honor mode live stream co-op. You all be able to jump in and out as you please, and I'm just going to have it modded up. I'm going to have all the party members, bunch of new classes, bunch of new races, just as much stuff as I can pack into it. So even though it'll be honor mode, we won't be focusing on difficulty. It'll all be about just coming in and having a good time. So I'm really excited about that. Really looking forward to it. This has been amazing. Larian Studios once again proves how amazing they are as a developer and as a company. Can't wait to see what they do next. Hope all of you enjoy this video. Take care.